be properly aesthetic without candles. Croeso friends, hello and welcome back to an Opus Elenae far, far away. This week, as you may have guessed, we are taking a steep departure from normal. As if I don't say that every other video. My partner is a nerd, like a huge Star Wars nerd. He has all of the X-Wing Lego sets and a lightsaber and pet fan theories and everything. His very favorite character is Boba Fett, and I am convinced that it must be an extended universe thing because even prior to the Disney buyout and the advent of Rebels and all of the other episodic things, Boba Fett had like 4 lines in the movies. Is it just because he shoots a bunch? It doesn't matter. He loves a Boba Fett. So one day we were watching Star Wars and talking about Amtgard, the buffer LARP that my partner also plays in, and it struck me that Boba Fett's armor design would make a killer applique tunic. And incidentally, would also be perfect for Halloween. I'd kind of hoped that this video release would coincide with the start of the 3rd season of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, as it would have in the past couple of years, but I guess we all kind of have to wait for December for that. Applique is a technique for sewing decorative fabric patches or designs to larger pieces of cloth like quilts or garments. They're fixed temporarily in place by basting or quilting spray or fusible web, and then the edges of the patches are sewn down securely, either by hand or on the machine. I sketched this out on my Procreate app as the basic design and then gave my partner 2 different color schemes to choose from. One was a cooler, more studio light accurate scheme, and the other a warmer, desert-like Tatooine lighting scheme. He ended up choosing the cooler one, which, good choice, that's gonna suit him better anyway. And then we ordered linen and we're off to the races. So everyone grab your favorite cuppa. Today I have a mug full of Kinfolk from Adjourn Teas, a Black-owned tea company based out of Richmond, Virginia. It is a delightful blend of black tea and ginger and peppermint and spearmint, and it is wonderful for settling my stomach. I got my COVID booster on Friday and I've had some lingering nausea since then, and this is helping immensely. I'll put the link in the description box below. Be sure to go check them out and support them. Let's get into it. The first thing I needed to do was finalize the design. I had that sketch, but I wanted something more concrete. The gray linen will serve as a base, so I'll cut those pieces out first and use them as a template to mark the red, yellow, and green pieces. This is a pretty standard rectangularly constructed tunic, but I've left out the front and back gores for a slightly more streamlined fit in the skirt. Once I have my fabric marked and cut, it's time to start assembling. As usual, I'm going to sew the shoulder seams together first and then fell the seam allowance, but unlike usual, I'm going to do the felling by machine. I realized that cutting the green yoke area in one piece would be easier and less bulky, and that the fabric will cover the shoulder seams, so it doesn't matter how I sew them down. To applique the color blocks, I'm using a heat-activated fusible web. It's basically a paper with solid glue on one side that I will iron, glue side down to my applique pieces. Once it is cool, I'll peel the paper off, position it on my base fabric, and iron again to fuse them. I'm not worried about the raw edges, I will end up stitching over them. After the fabric is completely cool, I don't want any warm glue gumming up my needle, I'll start by sewing a straight stitch along the edge of the color block. This will help hold the edges in place. Next, I've switched out my regular presser foot for a satin foot and selected a zigzag stitch on my machine, keeping a medium wide width, but turning down the stitch length until it's nearly a solid line. As you can see, one pass of this zigzag satin stitch doesn't always give me the level of coverage I want, so if it looks a bit sparse, I'll go over it a second time. Once the body and sleeve pieces are all appliqued, it's time to assemble them. I'll pin and sew the sleeves onto the body and then measure down from the shoulder seam to mark where the tops of the gore should start and sew them in. I'll add the underarm gussets in yellow to continue that color block under the arms. Finally, I'll serge the interior seams to finish them, but I kind of forgot to film that part. A quick trip through the washer and dryer will soften up that fusible web just a bit. Stay tuned after this commercial break for the finishing touches. Boba Fett's armor has two designs on it, a bantha skull on his bicep and a circle with something that looks like a wheat stalk on the opposite pectoral. I could make a carved block as I did for the dragon tunic, but since each design is a one-off and the circle requires 4 different colors, I'm going to use a different technique and make stencils instead. Step 1. Using my iPad as a light box, I'll trace each layer of the designs onto the rougher side of freezer paper and then cut them out with an X-Acto blade or scalpel. The shoulder design is 2 layers, a cream rectangular shield shape underneath and the skull over top of that. Step 2. I'll use a hot iron to attach the stencil into place. The glossy side of the freezer paper works great to temporarily stick to the fabric, and it will peel away with no problems or residue. For paint, I'm using a 50-50 mix of acrylic craft paint and textile medium. As you can see, I'm not overly worried about even coverage. I want the designs to look a little uneven and weathered. Once the paint is dry, I'll peel the stencil off and iron the next layer of the design on top. Here's what it looks like to iron the freezer paper stencil down. I forgot to film the shield shape. Each stencil is one use only, but sometimes that's all you need. And here is the finished bantha skull. I didn't do a great job of filming each step of the design, but they all go the same way. Working from bottom layer to top, iron the stencil down, paint the design, let dry, peel stencil off, repeat until finished. The last thing I'll do before hemming the tunic is to bind the keyhole neckline. I'm using some scrap green linen to make bias tape, which I will sew to the right side of the neckline. Once that's finished, I'll fold the tape over to the inside and secure it with a felling stitch. Thank you for joining me today, croissants. I'm always glad when I can take something slightly ahistorical and off-kilter, whether that's a fandom I'm in, or a book I've read, or a length of unconventional fabric, and then work it into a project and be really satisfied with the results. My partner loves his tunic, and when he wore it to an Amtgard park day, socially distanced and masked, of course, our friend Spork, who very kindly lent me his amazing Boba Fett helmet for the cold open of this video, flipped out because he also loved it so much. So I think that's mission accomplished. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I upload every other Friday, and if you like reminders, you can ring the notification bell and you might possibly get some. If you want to find me on other social media, I am at Opus LNI everywhere, and I will put all of those links in the description box below, along with the link to my Ko-fi, where I post exclusive donor content and I have my web shop. And don't forget that my downloadable London hood pattern will be coming out there on Monday, November 1st. Until next time, be kind, do the work, continue supporting marginalized people, and keep creating. Wheel. No, you're gonna burn your tail again. Gosh, you're not smart. Okay, come here.